Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Variety Sports Network. This is the Next Left Turn. Guys, COTA today. I had very mixed feelings going into this race, mostly because I'd heard a lot of negatives about it and people didn't like the track. So I went back and did a little bit of research, checked out the first race that was there 3 years ago. It was a total rain, sloppy mess. It was bad for the drivers. Um, so if that's the race people based it on and they didn't watch the last two races, I can understand why people didn't like the race. It was not entertaining. It wasn't fun. It was hard to watch. Then I went back and watched 2022, and then I watched last year's race. And I think it's a fun track. If you're one of the people out there who doesn't like this track or doesn't think it's a fun track to be at, comment in. Let me know. Tell me what you think. I would love to hear your actual thoughts. I've never heard a really good argument against it. But no, it's a really cool track. It's almost 3.5 miles long. It's in Austin, Texas. It's only a 68 lap race. So your stages were 15, 30, and then 38. So the purse on this race was $9,740,789. So a nice size purse for a road track. But let's get into it. There were some early predictions that Tyler Reddick was going to be the favorite since he won last year. He had a good race. Nothing against it, but the whole thing was, could he do it again? Ross Chastain has won there before. And then I don't count the rain race because that was just that was a race of survival. So I don't want to give anybody credit on that one. But let's get into it. Let's break it down. William Byron started this race on the pole. The guy's just been solid all year. He's been in it every race unless something's happened to him or he's had some bad luck. But Byron starts on the pole. Ty Gibbs is on the outside. Ty Gibbs was another favorite for this race because he runs really, really well at the road tracks and the short tracks. And then he's also on one of the better teams as of right now with one of the better setups in their cars. So before we actually start the race, I want to say this. If you haven't watched COTA, go back and just watch all the restarts. After cautions or just regular starts to each stage, COTA's got to have the most fun first turn. and NASCAR made some changes with that this year because in the past, you kept seeing all the cars jam up, and you'd see cars anywhere from 4 wide to 8 wide going into turn one. And this is the only track we ever see that at, really, or at least that I can recall from the top of my mind. Again, still getting back into NASCAR. It's been a while since I was a heavy viewer. So if I'm wrong, don't kill me, guys. But yeah, this turn one's awesome. But what they did was they moved the restart zone back. So the cars would have more time to kind of give themselves some space and not make turn one so crazy because last year you had 3 overtime restarts because guys kept wrecking in turn one. So NASCAR made that change. COTA also, or the people who run the Circuit of America's track, had some asphalting done to level out the track, do some track repairs. I got a couple notes on that we'll go over later. But let's jump into the race. Stage one, green flag. Reddick in turn one, just like we were talking about, turn one. Reddick goes to make it 3 wide to go for the lead in turn one. Byron drives deep into turn one. He holds off Reddick for that lead, but LaJoy, Wallace, and Truex Jr. all make contact. No caution. FYI, I tried to rewatch the race. I never saw a caution with purpose outside of the stage cautions. So that's how clean this race was. And that's how big the track is, because if you spin out and you can get the car moving, you can get back up and they don't have to slow down the race. So these road tracks are cool for one reason. They move a little bit quicker when you talk course of time of how long the race takes. But we get to lap 2 and we get a little bit more action. Martin Truex Jr. and Bubba Wallace head to pit lane because they made contact. Wallace had a tie rod that got broke. Truex Jr. actually, they thought he had a tire going down, but what he did was he cracked the rim. So I guess he did have a tire going down, but it wasn't because the tire was flat, because he had cracked rim. Harrison Burton gets spun around off of the nose of Josh Berry. Again, no caution. Everything keeps going. Lap 6, Gibbs is working on Reddick for second place. Byron is just stretching his lead because Gibbs and Reddick are going back and forth. And we all know how this is on super speedways and oval tracks, circle tracks, whatever you want to call them. If 2 guys are fighting for position, that one guy is going to stretch. Whoever's up front, he's just going to get a gap and just go. And that happened here, just like at most other races. Again, this is a very short stage, so it's 15 lap stage. So nothing else really happens between lap 6 and lap 13. Well, with 2 stages to go in the race, Byron and most leaders finally hit the pit lane. Strategy here is very, very important because the track is so big. Um, and because you're really only taking fuel and your tires aren't getting eaten up here, it's really how far can you push your fuel? How far can you push your tires? So one of the big strategies was pit with 2 laps left in the first stage. Then you don't have to pit it all in stage 2, and then you only got to pit in stage 3. Again, all for track position. All of our big race fans understand that. If you're new to NASCAR, strategy is huge. It's not just getting behind the wheel with the most horsepower and going. It's about saving tires, pitting strategically, and having some luck, especially at the big oval tracks. But a track like this, you're going to need luck and skill. Um, so like I said, all the leaders and most leaders and Byron head for pit lane. Christopher Bell stays out. Christopher Bell is having a fantastic season. He's looked good all year long. I think he's had one race that wasn't, that didn't stand out. But he gets the stage 1 win today because he stayed out. Again, he was playing strategy. At the end of stage 1, it was Christopher Bell, Daniel Suarez, Michael McDowell, Austin Cindric, and Austin Dillon rounding out the top 5. So then you get a few little pit changes. Nothing major really goes on. We start stage 2. Bell continues. Again, he was out. Byron restarts third for stage 2, and he's got fresh tires. So green flag drops. Byron makes it 3 wide for the lead going into turn 1. He tags Bell in the left rear slightly, but Bell holds the lead. Somehow he held him off. A few laps later, Byron works his way past Bell. It's I think it's lap 20. So it's like 4 or 5 laps into the stage. Byron works the inside of Bell. Because of those fresher tires, Byron takes the lead and he goes. He's just, again, gone. Byron was dominant. And when I say dominant, he led 43 of the 68 laps today. The dude was on fire. Hendricks Motorsports has their cars set up to run this year. And we're going to touch on Chevy and Toyota and Ford here in a little bit as well. So hang in on that if you want to get into manufacturer talk. Lap 22, Kyle Larson spins around off the front bumper of Bell. It wasn't dirty. It was just kind of racing. It didn't look super intentional to me. Bell came out after the race and said that he had no intent to do it. It was completely incidental. But you see a lot of this in these turns and these hairpin turns and through the S's and everything at these big road tracks. 2 laps later, Bell gets into it again no, my apologies. It wasn't 2 laps later. We'll get back to that in a second. It's 4 laps later, Ricky Stenhouse dumps Kamui Kobayashi, who is an F1 driver. He's won at Le Mans. He's won the 24 hours at Daytona. He's a ringer for nothing else in NASCAR. He's a ringer. He got brought in by Trackhouse to run this race. He was driving the number 50 car. But Stenhouse is, I mean, usually you get 1-2 bumps and somebody's supposed to let you go. That's like the general courtesy in NASCAR. Well, Kobayashi wasn't letting Stenhouse go, and Stenhouse was like, if you're not going to let me go, I'm going to go by you one way or another. So going through turn 8, Stenhouse gets behind him, bumps him 3-4 times. And turn 8 is where, so in the turns, for this race, there's really not a whole lot of penalties for cutting the turns except for in the S's, but you had to stay in this certain green painted portion before you hit the dirt. If all 4 tires came off and you were in the green and the dirt, that was a penalty. It's a drive-through penalty down pit lane. Well, Stenhouse dumps Kobayashi in turn 8. And as Kobayashi's spinning and he turns it and Stenhouse is going to the outside, Kobayashi gets into him and spins Stenhouse out. So it was a little bit of revenge there for the ringer versus the vet. Again, no caution. No caution. That's the cool part about these road tracks when they're huge. 2 laps to go on the stage. Byron again hits the pits from the race lead. Hamlin stays out this time, and Hamlin wins stage 2. Again, there's not a whole lot going on in this race. Guys, if you don't know the track, it's big. It's real big. And as soon as you get spread out, it's really hard to pass. You don't have a whole lot of opportunities to pass. You got to pass in turn 1, turn 11, or the S's. And that's not an easy feat. I mean, turn 1 and turn 11 are both basically hairpin turns. So you kind of got to get lucky with the line you take going in, high or low, and you got to have good traction coming out because it's really, really easy to spin those back tires and lose control and get loose. So these are things that the drivers are constantly paying attention to. And it's something every driver has to pay attention to, because if you can't stay forward on the track, you can't win the race. So we get into stage 3. Obviously, there's going to be some pitting going on. Hamlin and the rest of the guys who were up front didn't pit; they stayed out. Um, but by the time we got through the cycling of everything, Byron was back up to the lead. Green flag for stage 3 drops. Byron locks him up going into turn 1. He runs wide through the corner. This opens the door for Ross Chastain to just go, takes the lead. And then Gibbs and Byron follow him through turn 1. A couple laps later, Byron gets a run on Gibbs for second place, and Byron just gone, no problem. Like I said earlier, Byron's car, Hendricks had him set up for this race. It's like they had some big practice session before the whole NASCAR community came out here, and they were locked in all day. So now here's that other accident that Bell gets into that I jumped ahead to earlier. My apologies. It's lap 41. Kyle Busch gets spun out by Christopher Bell. Again, no caution. Both cars get back moving. No big deal. We're going to come back to this a little bit later. In lap 43, Byron is chasing down Chastain at this point, and he's in and out. And this time he looks to the inside of Chastain to go for the battle. And Chastain closes the door going into turn 2, or coming out of turn 2, excuse me. He just closes the door and takes off on him. And we all know Chastain's an aggressive driver. I like to think of him as an old school driver, kind of like what we saw in the 90s. So I kind of like him. I know he gets a little bit crazy out there, and sometimes he causes problems that he shouldn't cause, but that's racing, right? That's old school racing. But Chastain holds him down. So now we're with like 23 laps to go, and now things kind of start picking up. We're starting seeing a little bit of motion. I mean, guys know that the race is winding down. If you're going to make a move for position or for points, you got to do it now. But the surprising part was, and this is the strategy of it, Bowman goes for a pit stop. He's the first one in to take pit stops. He's got a good car all day. He's been running strong. No reason not to. But his teammate is not. And this is what struck me as odd. They didn't come in together. Again, in a road track, they're separated so much. You can't always see where everybody's at when they come into pits with the way they're jumping the cameras around. It's a big difference from watching like Daytona or Talladega or Bristol or Richmond. So Byron and Chastain went down pit lane together. Gibbs then stayed out, and because he was handed the lead because he was the next car in line, he was handed the lead, so he stayed out. We get through some pit stops. We get down to 18 to go, and at this point, all the pit stops are done. Everybody's come in for their last pit stop, or so we think. And Byron is cycled back up to the front. Bowman, because he used his strategy, is now in second place, and Gibbs is sitting in third. So things are getting a little more interesting now. We're starting to see the strategy work out, and we get to about 14 laps left, and crowd favorite. He's been like the favorite for NASCAR for multiple times in the last decade or last 5-6 years. Chase Elliott. I mean, again, he's having a much better year than he had last year. Obviously, he had a lot of drama last year, the injury, the suspension, the whole 9 yards. But he's having a much better season this year. He was running a strong race today, but he spins out again, no caution. So we continue on driving. We keep racing, keep making those lefts and those rights. God, those hairpin turns are so much fun to watch, guys. I seriously just to see NASCAR just dive into a hairpin and start bumping and spread out to 6 wide is awesome. But with 8 laps to go, Gibbs drives down inside of Bowman in turn 1. Gibbs takes over and gets into second place, but Byron's lead is now stretched to 3.5 seconds. And here's where we're like, Christopher Bell has been lingering back there. He's been back there all day long, but he's had a good car all day long, and he always works his way through the field. This has been a theme for Bell all season long. I don't know if he's ever going to turn into like a Jeff Gordon, definitely not a Dale Earnhardt or a Richard Petty, or a Jimmy Johnson, but he's going to be a force to be reckoned with for years to come because he's young. And that's book it now. I'm saying it live on the air. Christopher Bell will be a force to be reckoned with for years to come in the NASCAR Cup Series. But with 3 laps to go, Christopher Bell drives to the inside of Ty Gibbs, and he takes second place. And Bell basically has the only car that has enough speed and that's set up well enough to catch Byron, who's now at a 2.5 second lead. So they've shrunk his lead a little bit. Um, but Byron's car, man, he was just too fast. He was too fast. His handling was too good. The strategy was there today. With one to go, Bell is really closing the gap, but he's running out of time to catch Byron, and Byron takes the checker. I mean, William Byron wins his second race of the year, his first time winning at COTA, and it was just a dominant performance by Hendricks Motorsports as well as the Toyotas. And I mean, 2311 was good today. I mean, Bubba Wallace had his problems. But the Toyotas are locked. Joe Gibbs's racing team is just on fire, and 2311 has an advantage because, as we all know, Denny Hamlin's a partial owner of that team with Michael Jordan, and Denny Hamlin drives for Joe Gibbs Racing. So I'm sure he's taking a lot of his information and handing it over to his drivers for his team. He's not giving up all the secrets because he still wants to win and take care of his owner and his teammates. But I mean, would anybody else think it's fishy to suspect that he's not going, hey, Bubba, try this. Hey, Tyler, try this. He's, of course, like I said, I don't think he's giving them everything, but the fact that all the Toyotas are running so well together right now, the changes that got made to the body package, did NASCAR do too much? The Chevys are always dominant, so I don't want to say that NASCAR's got a thing for Chevy, but they do. And Ford is just having a rough year. Ford can't get out of their own way. They haven't won a race yet. I mean, even the Penske cars can't get it done. I mean, Ryan Blaney's up there in the points, but he doesn't have a W yet. Logano finds bad luck, it seems, every week. He finally had a decent race this week, finishes in the top 15. But RFK's doesn't have a win yet. Stewart Haas just is not the team they've been of recent years, mostly because they got a lot of younger drivers who don't have the experience and the tact in racing in these big races. So I think that'll come with Stewart Haas, and with Smoke being the leader of that company and that team, I'm sure he will make the adjustments needed and give the coaching points needed to get these guys up to speed and make them more competitive. So we had some after race action. And let's start off with the not so big and glamorous one, but we had a disqualification, and we don't see a lot of these in NASCAR. It just doesn't tend to happen very often. I mean, you really got to break some rules. But NASCAR officials disqualified Rick Ware Racing's number 51 car, and that car is drove by Justin Haley, if you don't know. But the rule that they broke was a weight rule, and they said that the car did not meet the minimum weight requirement for Sunday's Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix at the 3.41 mile road course. If you guys want to get technical, the infraction looks to fall under section 14.11.2 in the NASCAR rulebook. I've seen guys get disqualified for worse things, and I don't know if I've ever seen anybody disqualified for anything lesser. If you have, join in the comments. Let me know. Because again, like I said, I'm still learning everything as I'm here too. So Haley it's his first year racing for Rick Ware. He was with Colleague the last couple seasons. This was his best finish of the year. He finished at 17th, but instead, because of the disqualification, he will get the 39th place finish with the points and the money. The drama after the race. You guys remember how I told you that Christopher Bell got into it with a couple guys, the Kyles from earlier in the season who were leading all the races? Yeah, well, Kyle Busch, Rowdy, took some exception to when Bell spun him out in turn one. And I looked at the replay 3 or 4 times. To me, it didn't look intentional. But the fact that it wasn't the first time Bell spun somebody today, that kind of would hurt his argument. But anyways, Busch and I don't remember who it was because I was watching the wreck. Busch and somebody else were going into turn one. They were going too wide. Bell cut the turn, came in tight and cut it, and just clipped Busch a little bit as Busch was turning down into turn one. Busch went for a little spin. It didn't disrupt Bell, obviously, because, like I said, Bell finished second in this race, and he was making a charge at the end. But Busch gets out of his car at the end of the race on pit lane, and he walks through all the report. I mean, you got to go online and watch the video. He's stomping over, blah, 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 blah. And he gets bit. I mean, he is face to face. They are in each other's faces. And I got to give Busch a little credit here. He didn't just start yelling and just screaming at Bell. That he was the first part of the audio clip. You can't hear it in the video I got to catch, but at one point, you or right before the end, you hear Rowdy tell Bell that he has respect for him, and then he goes, "Have I ever wrecked you?" And Bell shakes his head and says, "No." And Kyle responds with, "Okay, shit's coming," and walks away. That's it. I mean, I was like, all right, we get a little bit of old school NASCAR rivalry going on. We get a seasoned vet with another young guy who's making his name in racing. This could be something we watch for the rest of the season. It could be a whole lot of fun, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you, I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. So again, big race today, lots of fun down there at COTA. Again, Byron dominated it, but lots of fun in the sense of racing. It's the first road track of the year. We got 5 of these this year. We got the Roval, Watkins Glen. I haven't looked at the whole schedule, so I don't know all the other places. I know we got Sonoma, and I don't know what the other one is. I know they're not doing Indy this year. I know they're going back to the Brickyard. So I will look at the schedule. We will get there, I promise. But let's talk a little bit about the final standings today. So, like we said, William Byron won the race, finishing first. Christopher Bell finished second. Ty Gibbs had another great race, finishing in third. Alex Bowman, again, that strategy paid off. Another top 5 finish for him. And that put him at fourth. Tyler Reddick finished fifth. And at this point, that's Chevy, Toyota, Chevy, Toyota. Then we have another former full-time NASCAR Cup Series racer, AJ Allmendinger, finished sixth. He's a full-timer in the Xfinity Series now, and he gets brought up for certain races in the NASCAR now. Ross Chastain finished seventh. Chris Buescher, our first Ford, finished at eighth. Kyle Busch ended up finishing ninth. Martin Truex Jr. 10th. Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney 11 and 12 for Penske. Chase Briscoe for Stewart Haas finishes in 13th. Denny Hamlin comes in 14th with Bubba Wallace, his employee, behind him in 15th. Chase Elliott ends up finishing 16th. Kyle Larson 17th. Austin Cindric gets 18th. Zane Smith with a nice finish, top 20 there. He finishes 19th. Shane Van Gisbergen, who won the Chicago Road Race. That's the other one. See, I got it. Shane Van Gisbergen finished 20th. He did really, really well in the Xfinity race yesterday. Finished second, but again, a penalty ended up coming across the board, and he got dropped way down yesterday. John Hunter Nemechek finished 21st. Carson Hocevar finished 22nd. Ryan Preece, 23rd. Corey LaJoie, 24th. Austin Dillon having a real rough season. He can't. It's not like he can't get out of his own way. He's just getting bad luck left and right. Every race, bad luck for him. It's really unfortunate seeing that number 3 car just not be revived to what it was when I was a child. Long live and rest in peace, Dale Earnhardt. Todd Gilliland finishes 26th. Kaz Grala finishes 27th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. finishes 28th. And right behind him was I don't want to mess up his name. Kobayashi. I know I got the Kobayashi right, but I apologize on the first name. He finished 29th. Harrison Burton finished 30th. Daniel Suarez, 31st, which was a surprise to me. Daniel Suarez is usually a really, really good road racer. Usually he's up there at the top competing at the end. It just wasn't his day today. Eric Jones finished 32nd. Brad Keselowski finished 33rd. Noah Gragson, 34th. Josh Berry is not turning out to be what he was last year when he was filling in for Chase Elliott. Could that be the team? Could that be the car? Only time will tell. I picked Josh Berry. I was going to be on this train this year because that was like going to be my rookie to root for. And he was driving for smoke. So, I mean, why not be on board with that? Timmy Hill finished 36th. Daniel Hemrick finished 37th. Michael McDowell finished 38th. And because of the penalty, Justin Haley finished 39th. All the cars finished the race today, which is nice because we don't ever see that. Let me see here. What other notes did I have that we should cover for today's race before we preview the next race? I got nothing else major, guys. Nothing else major for this race. But let's look forward to the next week, Easter weekend. We're going to Richmond. We're going to Richmond next Sunday. It's going to be a fantastic race. It's going to be the Toyota Owners 400 on March 31st, 2024. And this is a different one for a Sunday night for us. It's a 7 p.m. Eastern start. So everybody, the show next week, my goal is if I am not dead exhausted and there's not 100 cautions in this race where it drags out past midnight, I am going to try to get on next week 15 minutes after the checkered flag. So the show will probably be shorter unless there's just tons of action and I'm wired for it. But that's something to look forward to next week. It's going to be a great race. Richmond's always fun. Richmond's just, it's always a good time. It's old school racing. That's why it's always fun. Let me see here. Let me see if I got any other information for you. It's 300-mile race. It's 400 laps. It is going to be on Fox for the national broadcast if you can't make it to the race. And it's going to be a great way to end your Easter Sunday. Go to church, praise the Lord, Jesus is risen, and then get home for a good family dinner and then end your evening with some good NASCAR, a fantastic historical track. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are too. You guys got comments, concerns, questions, anything you guys want me to look up? We didn't go over the aero package this week because they were actually running the same package they ran at Bristol. I didn't feel like we needed to cover that again. If you guys want to keep hearing about aerodynamic packages, please let me know. I'm more than happy to look more of that up and learn for myself and for you and share that information. Make sure you check out all of our other shows here on the Variety Sports Network. You got 7th Inning Stretch. You'll see me there on Thursday nights with Darren Breyer. He is fantastic. Guys, he's a star in the making. Wreck with Rangers, our esports show. That show's on Saturday nights. We have so many shows. Check out the Double. We have so much going on for the college basketball tournament right now for March Madness. So make sure you go check out the TikTok, the YouTube, the Instagram, the Facebook. Subscribe, and share, please. And message us. Let us know if you think there's something we could do better. If you guys ever wanted to have an opportunity to come and be on the show, if you know something, you think you got a better take than us, message us. Get a hold of us. We will bring you on. We will have a dang good time. I don't care what sport it is. You message in, we'll get you on. We'll have some fun with you. This is a show for the fans, by the fans. We're learning together. If you're not learning with me, then teach me something, because that means you know more than I do. Guys, have a fantastic week. It was a fun week at COTA. I look forward to talking to you next week after Richmond. Have a blessed week and be safe out there. And we'll see you guys next week.